was midwinter, 20th of December, when the man in the red jacket left the car park by the Iron Age fort. He was going to climb Simonside Hill. It was a ritual journey. He decided he wanted to see the sunset on the last day of the year, that awful year. He wanted to wish it goodbye. It had been snowing during that day. It had been unusually cold as he stepped out, and he walked along the path. It was icy. He slipped over once, twice, cursing. He'd left it late. He was in a hurry. He speeded up, and he realized, no, he'd taken the wrong path. He'd missed the track that went up through the forest. He hesitated for a minute and thought, should he go back? But he decided not. And he got to the fence, and he climbed over the fence, and now he was on the fell. The snow was thick in drifts over the rocks and over the tussocks of grass. It wasn't walking now. It was more like clambering. He felt himself falling waist deep in the snow and clambering out again. The wind whistled through the fence, the wire fence. And then two birds, two ravens, black, crawled above him. He pulled himself up onto the ridge. He was nearly there. He'd almost made it. He would get there in time. And he started speeding up when it came, the mist, thick of a blanket. He couldn't see a thing. The man waited by an upright stone. The mist came in waves, wave after wave of it. He thought it would go like it often does, clear, and he'd make his way up to the top of the hill and to see the sun. But it didn't. It wrapped itself round him like a blanket. It got darker. The sun had gone now. It was too late. The wind was stronger. He crouched down in the lee of the stone. For the first time, a little fibre of fear entered his body. He couldn't walk anywhere. He couldn't see anything. He could hardly see the hand in front of his face. He could easily fall. One step and be down a precipice. But the cold was eating into him, right into his bones. He wasn't prepared for a night on a hill, a winter's night on a hill. He felt for his torch. One pocket, then another. Wasn't there. Damn it. He'd left it in the car in his hurry. He pulled the jacket around him, keeping in as much warmth as he could out of the wind. And he waited. And he waited. He didn't know how long he waited. Just the fear rising. And then he saw it. A light. At first he blinked. He thought he must be imagining it. But it was definitely a light. It wasn't a torch. It wasn't moving. The light was still. But whatever it was hope. And down on his hands and knees, he crawled towards that light. He got nearly to it when he realized it was in a dwelling. It was a round dwelling with a thatched roof. There was no dwelling here. He had been many times before. What was a dwelling doing here? He looked inside. In the door, there was the flickering flames of a fire. And on one side of the fire was a large stone. On the other, a smaller one.
All around this wild country, the winter it has now begun. Now is the time to slip away from the California sun to a place where we can be as free as the wind, as wild as the huskies cry. Now winter is nigh, let us fly to my love cabin home in the sky. With snow piling all round the door and many a log on the stove, with chickadees sing a comforting song, I'll show you it's you that I love. Oh, let those out, they won't find us here, but a salt oil and we will ride. Now winter is nigh, let us fly to my love cabin home in the sky. Now comes a time to everyone when they must turn their back on the crowd. When the glare of the lights gets much too bright and the music plays too loud, everyone must run from the deeds they have done, recalling those days aside. Now winter is nigh, let us fly to my love cabin home in the sky. All around this wild country, the winter it has now begun. Now is the time to slip away from the California sun to a place where we can be as free as the wind, as wild as the huskies cry. Now winter is nigh, let us fly to my log cabin home in the sky.
The man crouched down. He entered the hut. He walked towards the large stone and sat down. He stretched his legs out as far as he could to the fire, just far enough so the soles of his boots didn't melt. He looked. To one side of him, there was a pile of sticks. To the other, 2 large logs. There was no one there. He bent down and he took a handful, a numb-fingered handful of the sticks, and he put them on the fire. It flared up. The warmth of it. The warmth. It was only then that he started to ask himself, whose is this? Where are they? Who made this fire? The questions whirled around in his head as his shivering body slowly started to warm up. But then, he didn't know how long after, he felt a shadow come into that hut. And he looked up, and there was a small man with red hair coming out from under his hat, a tunic the colour of dried bracken. He walked towards him and he sat on the smaller log, on the smaller stone. Now the man, there were questions in his head, like, I hope it's all right, or please, or thank you. And he looked up and he was just about to speak when the man looked at him with those deep brown eyes, like he was looking right into his soul. And any words he had were stuck in his throat. And he realized then who this was. This was a Durga. This was the ferryman of fairy stories. And he had always thought they were fairy stories. And there he was, sitting opposite him, a face inscrutable, neither friendly nor hostile, just there, looking. And the two of them sat, one opposite each other, with the man putting more and more of the small wood onto the fire to keep warm until it was all gone. And all that was left were 2 logs. The small man, the Durga, got up. He walked over, he picked up one of the logs, and then with a mighty thrust, he smashed it on his leg with a power quite unimaginable. It broke into 100 shards. Then the little man started putting those splinters of wood, one by one, onto the fire. And with each splinter, a picture emerged in the flames. There was a skylark spilling its song high in the sky. There was a lizard sunning on a rock. There were tree roots underground growing imperceptibly, one towards another. There was a mushroom pushing its head out of the earth. And slowly the man realized what he was seeing was the small details of the Simonside Hills. They came one after another. The buzzard, the grouse, the hares, the waving grass. And then suddenly the images stopped and he came back into the world and the fire had gone down to embers. And the man looked up and he saw the Durga looking at him. The Durga looked first at him and then at the log and then back at the man. And the man realized it was a challenge, but he couldn't smash that log. But he had no choice. And he leant out, stretching his arms to pick up that log.
You well and sweetly smell, but the sparks will fly. Birch clouds will burn too fast, there's no scares at all, sir. And all the logs are good to last, better cut well in the fall, sir. Now surely you will find there's another compare with hardwood logs that's cut in the winter time.
Burn them green, bells logs high, with flame to be seen. Each logs for winter time, you logs as well, sir. For anyone to sell, sir. Now surely you will find there's no compare with hardwood logs that's cut in the winter time. Pear logs and apple logs, they will scent your room, and cherry logs across the docks, they smell like flowers of broom. But ash logs, smooth and grey, buy them young or old, sir, and buy up all that comes your way, for they're worth their weight in gold, sir.
The man stretched out. A cock crowed somewhere in the valley below. And as he stretched, he realized there was no log. He was leaning over a sharp, sheer precipice. A sudden fear went into his body. He pulled back. A smudge of morning sun came over the horizon. He looked around, and there was no hut. There was no fire. There was no Durga. There was only a twisted stick, the stick that the Durga had walked in with, lying on the ground. His heart beat. He sat still. He could see down to the village of Rothbury, a few lights shining in the early morning. And then he gathered himself and he stood up. He went over to where the twisted stick lay on the ground and he picked it up. And he started to make his way back down the hill. But this time he was in no hurry. It was one step after another. There was nowhere to go but here, this moment, with the snow glinting in the sun, the buzzards mewing over his head. He felt completely a part of everything, and everything was completely alive inside him. In that moment, all his fears, all his burdens in life completely disappeared. He was everything. He looked around to where the Durga had been. He'd gone up the hill for one ritual, and he'd got another. A ritual this time far more precious than ever he could have imagined. And he whispered, "Thank you," to the Durga as he walked on down to the town.
Keep your eyes on the skies, keep looking. Keep your eyes on the skies, keep searching. Keep your eyes on the skies, they're still burning. And tomorrow we'll do more, we'll do more, we'll do more than just survive. Keep your hands on the wheel, keep driving. Keep we'll do more than just survive. Keep some hope in your song. Keep singing. Keep some swing in your step. Keep walking, moving, grooving. Keep dancing. Keep some truth in your words. Keep on talking. When the sky comes tumbling, pavements cracking, wastelands crashing, 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 we will sing, fly, soar, live, die in, flying, soaring, and when we come home, we won't be leaving. And when we come home, we won't be grieving. And when we come home, we'll still be believing that tomorrow we'll do more, we'll do more, we'll do more than just survive. That tomorrow we'll do more, we'll do more, we'll do more than just survive. That tomorrow we'll do more, we'll do more, we'll do more.
I don't know. I don't know if they're real.
Real.